symbols and so forth that we find in the church that kind of help remind us of the things of our faith. Well, today we'd like to begin to take a look at the Mass itself, if you will, that we celebrate every Sunday and other holy days, and kind of begin to hopefully better understand what's going on at Mass, if you will, while we're doing all the various different things that we're doing. And so we're going to take a look at kind of the parts and the pieces of the Mass. So we're going to start at the beginning of Mass today. So we'll spend a little time talking about some of the various different parts of the Mass itself. Many of you maybe already know that the Mass really consists of two major parts, right? Do you know what those two major parts of the Mass are, what they're called? You do know?
Yes.
What are they?
The Mass of the Catechumens and the Mass of the Faithful.
That's exactly right. Thank you. So first of all, we have the Mass of the Catechumens, which is the first part of Mass. Catechumens. And then we have the Mass of the Faithful. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the Mass of the Catechumens. So what is a catechumen?
It's a person, it's a Christian from Rome who was persecuted by the Romans for their faith.
They were, that's true. But is there anybody in this room that's a catechumen? You don't think so? Well, you're wrong. Actually, everybody in this room is a catechumen. Because in the broader sense of the word, what the word means is someone that's learning about the faith, is what a catechumen is. And that really for us is an entire lifelong process. And so all of our life, we're learning more and more about the faith. So in that sense, we are all catechumens. And that's why the church, if you will, begins the Mass, the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, with this section called the Mass of the Catechumens. And we are there primarily because of the fact that we are learning or continuing to learn about our faith in Jesus Christ. Okay? So that's the primary. Now, what James was talking about a little bit was that there was a time in the church's history when there were people learning about their faith, but were not fully initiated into the faith. In other words, they had not received the sacraments of baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation yet. And so there came a point in the Mass where the catechumens would come to Mass, but then they had to leave because they weren't ready to celebrate the fullness of the mysteries of the Mass. And so they would leave at the end of the section of the Mass called the Mass of the Catechumens. And they would leave and go for further instruction, while those who had been baptized, received First Holy Communion, and had been confirmed remained to participate in the fullness of the graces of the Mass. And then on Easter Sunday, when they were received into full communion, or they were baptized by the bishop at that time, then they were able to stay for the whole portion of the Mass of the Catechumens and the Mass of the Faithful. But I think the thing for us to understand today is that the Mass of the Catechumens is still a part of the Mass because we are all in the process of learning about our faith, right? And it's a lifelong process. It goes on forever. And that's why once we receive those three sacraments of initiation, the church doesn't stop including the Mass of the Catechumens, because we continue the process of learning, okay? Now, a lot of times, because usually, as we begin Mass, or we would, the priest and the altar servers walk down the aisle to the altar, the very first thing that happens, usually in a high Mass, is something called the asperges, right?